If I want to configure my DNS server to forward traffic to another DNS server, I'm just going to go to my server, right click, and in the properties, there is a forwarders tab. On this forwarders tab, I click edit and I simply type in the IP address of the machine I want to forward to. Well, I'm going to type in 8.8.8.8. That's actually a public Google DNS server that anyone can use. What that does, when I type in that 8.8.8, it tells this DNS server anything that this server cannot resolve locally, do not send it to the root hints. Instead, forward it to this IP address to be resolved. So here, well, I'm going to click OK. When I expand my forward lookup, I have this zone underscore MSDCS. That contains all the Active Directory records. And I have the zone Atlantis.local. Actually contains my domain records for my DC1, Serve1, and other things. If you send a query to this DNS server to resolve anything other than Atlantis.local, it can't do it. It says the only thing I know is Atlantis.local. If you ask me for Yahoo.com or something on the internet, I don't know what that stuff resolves to. Now that I added a forwarder, it would take a request for Yahoo or any other domain or any internet site, and it simply takes that, if I go back to the forwarders, and it forwards that query to this address. Now that type of query it forwards is a recursive query from one DNS server forwarded to another. Now responsibility is placed on this DNS server to resolve that name, then it'll send it back to me. Can offload some of the processing on my DNS server. Another reason you may opt to use a forwarder, if you have all your DNS servers internal on the LAN, but you need to resolve external names. I may not be comfortable with my internal DNS servers communicating directly to the internet. So one possibility, install a DNS server in a perimeter network. Don't configure anything on it. Just install in a perimeter network, and maybe you have that DNS server use root hints to connect to the internet. Maybe you have it forward to your service provider or Google, like I said here. What I could do to my internal DNS servers is I could tell my internal DNS servers, anytime you get a query for anything on the internet, don't send it to the internet. Instead, I want you to forward it to the machine in the perimeter network. Well, if I wanted to do that, I'm just going to edit and I'm going to remove this 888. And I'm just going to type in 192.168.1.10. I'll say that's in the perimeter network. So now my DNS server internal knows to pass that request to that machine, and that machine carries it out to the internet. So it gives me a layer of security between my internal and the internet. The other type of forwarder we have is a conditional forwarder. The forwarder we just looked at just asked for an IP address. A conditional forward, it shows up here, will forward to a specific domain. An example of this would be if your company bought my company, and now we need to be able to resolve names of servers and applications and other things. We want name resolution between the two forwards. If that's what I want, I can right-click conditional forwarder, and I create a new conditional forwarder, and it says type in the name of the domain. So let's say our partner company is AMF. AMF.ltd. I could type in the IP address of a DNS server that I could communicate with in AMF. So I'm going to say 20.1.1.5. So now if this DNS server gets a request for anything that ends with .amf.ltd, it knows to specifically send it to this DNS server and it'll be resolved.